is Harvey Weiner. I'm the National Commander, and I'm also Chairman of the Policy Committee, which will meet after the presentation. As Chairman, I clearly failed in getting the appropriate number of chairs. But everybody is seated now, and we're okay with that. And for that bad joke, I have to blame David Magidson. So without further ado, I'm going to have Raquel introduce our speaker.
And you may ask, why would I be introducing this gentleman? And I first met this gentleman a while ago. Anyways, but at a little bit of a difficult time in my life. It was about a year after I had become widowed, and I was starting to then look for something which I could do as far as work. And I was approached by someone, and he said, my wife has been doing a lot of work in my office, and we've been doing a lot, but it's starting to get to the point where we really need somebody else to come in. And we need someone else to come in, we need someone else to start taking over these kind of duties that she was doing, and we have some other ideas of how to do a little bit more. Not only withstanding that she was also pregnant and just fallen and broken her foot. So I started working with SOFR on site, and that journey until I got married 6 years ago, that journey at SOFR on site was 10 years. So I've worked together with Rabbis Druin and the SOFR on site team, and seen and explained and seen amazing things as far as what we're going to be doing, but I'll let him explain that. So Rabbi Druin has a very varied experience, and he spent years in South Africa. He's been in the rabbinate, but also as far as he is a SOFR par excellence, and many people that you know probably have had experiences with him, with their congregations. In addition, as far as being a SOFR, he also teaches SOFR. He teaches SOFRs, and he has people who work with him who are experts or have become experts under his tutelage in their field. In addition, he's also involved with, as far as the ethics of the SOFR movement and as far as SOFRim in general, as far as on equality standards and others as well. So I'd like to introduce you from North Miami Beach, Florida, Rabbi Moshe Druin.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Okay, if you can hear me, say aye. Okay, that's great. It's actually, since we have to begin, a Jewish organization has to begin with a Devar Torah, a word of Torah. That's what we do. It is somewhat very befitting that this meeting and gathering is happening this week and with the Torah. And I'll tell you why. Because the end of last week, we read in the Torah one of the most difficult Jewish battles we ever had. And guess who won? In fact, we had two major battles in different times, under circumstances that the odds were against us. And who do you think won? We did. Usually after a win, we go and have a big party. But in this case, we had a double party. Because in this week's parasha, in this week's Jewish reading of the Torah, we read about the receiving of the Torah. In this week, God gives the Torah to the Jewish people. I'm pointing at it. You are right now today sitting in the presence of that same Torah. Does anyone know, when we lift up a Torah on a Saturday and we all rise, and the person who holds the Torah holds it with the two arms out, and they open up the scroll with the sheets for everyone to see, and we take, often many people, they'll take a pinky and they'll point at it, right? Does anyone know what those words that we say? We say the words, Vezot HaTorah Asher. You know that? Of course. What do those words mean? In Hebrew, it means this. This is the Torah that God gave us. ladies and gentlemen, honorary, incredible service people, servicemen and women, you are sitting here in the presence of a real Torah. And it's this week we're talking about it. How befitting that we're going to learn a little bit about what it takes to make it, and what it's going to take to restore it, and how you will be involved spiritually, emotionally, and then eventually it's going to help the organization also raise some money. And we're going to talk about all of that. A little bit about me. As you heard, I do live in North Miami Beach. We've been there now for 20, going on 22 years. I am married, Baruch Hashem. I have 11 children. You can say, wow. I am blessed with 12 grandchildren. You can say, wow, wow. Yet, practically every single week, other than holidays, Jewish holidays, I'm on a plane traveling somewhere else around the planet, doing exactly somewhat of what we're going to be discussing today. When it comes to taking care of Torah, I get a little bit emotional every single time. Can you imagine? We were just talking a minute ago about President Kennedy. Could you imagine if we were just sitting here and suddenly there was a little knock on the door and a head peeks through, and it's President Kennedy? The chills. Wow. How about Lincoln? How about King David? How about Moses? This is that incredible document, holy ritual, holy part of God that is with us. And I'm honored to be one of those who can write it, and one of the very few who actually is qualified to restore it. Soon I'm going to tell you a little bit about this particular scroll and what it's going to mean to this project. We all know in the Torah how many commandments, mitzvot, are there? 613. Okay? By the way, since we're talking about commandments and all, you know, when God wanted to give the Torah to the Jewish people, it says that God went around many other nations asking them if they want it. And each nation first asked, what's in it? And he said, don't steal, nah, not for me, don't kill, we live. And all the nations kept on hearing the restrictions that existed, and they said, nah, this is not for us. God supposedly came to the Jewish people and he said, would you like my Torah? So what's a Jew ask if you want something? He says, how much is it going to cost? So God said, ho, 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 relax, it's for free. So the Jew said, give me 2. So we have the 10 Commandments given on the 2 tablets, and yet the Torah is actually not on stone. Otherwise, we would really have a hard time lifting it. It's on parchment. This is animal skin. Now, the way animal skin is made, from animal skin into parchment, it's a process. It takes many months of taking the raw material and stretching and cleaning it, till eventually it does not look like skin anymore, and it turns into Torah paper. And this Torah paper, if preserved, can practically last indefinite. And it's our job from time to time to ensure that the integrity of the Torah is maintained. So that's where a sofer like myself will be invited to come in. Sometimes scrolls are sent to our workshop. Sometimes we actually travel to where the Torah is, and we fix it on site. Okay, so that's beautiful. That's a job. I have a job, so you say congratulations, mazel tov to you. We're all employed, he's employed, and we get on with it. How does it affect any one of you? Mitzvah 613 proclaims, and here's the catch. Could you imagine you're reading your favorite novel, and it took you 2 weeks to read it because it had thousands of pages. And at the end of that novel, you're about to get to the punchline, to the finish line of this book, and you're reading, and the author writes there, and he says, if you really want to get the message of my novel, of my book, take out a pen, take out a paper, and start writing out the entire novel. You crazy? Who wants to write novels? And yet, what does it say at the end of this Torah? Every Jewish man, woman, and child in their lifetime have a mitzvah, obligation, to physically hold quill in hand and write this whole thing. So I'm going to ask by a show of hands, how many of you have written an entire scroll? Ouch. I was hoping for... So you ask a person, have you written? They say, hey, my handwriting? It's as good as a doctor. I can't write a Torah. And the truth is, even if I had a decent handwriting, did you forget to mention that it takes about a whole year to write it? And let's say I had a whole year to write. Did you forget to mention that it takes about 4 or 5 years of training? And if I had all the time in the world, and who's going to pay? So our sages of blessed memory came up with a beautiful plan. They said, we'll solve this. Let's go and find those individuals who can write, and everyone will contribute money towards the writing. That's how, usually, in communities or in families, schools and hospitals and organizations, when they want to write, they actually go ahead and commission, and they have someone writing it. So here's my question to you. A scribe sits and writes an entire scroll, a whole year. And at the end, he didn't finish the last letter. Is it a kosher Torah? But it's only one letter. The rest is good. Every letter counts. Every Jew counts. Every person, every letter counts. Now what happens? What happens if the scribe wrote this Torah? Am I supposed to salute? I'm not sure. I don't know. You hear. Okay, if you have your phones on, now's a good time to shut them down. If a letter was left incomplete, not finished, and this Torah was never given to anyone, and it sat in a box for 10 years, it's still not a kosher Torah until How about if this Torah has now been sitting for 100 years and it was never finished, that last letter? Is it a kosher Torah? What happens if the Torah was finished, but then when they read it, they saw that a letter was missing? It's back to square one. You gotta fix it. And any time you write and fix and restore a letter, it's the same energy, it's the same power, it's the same mitzvah, it's the same connection between a Jew and his creator, her creator, in writing this Torah. We have here a Torah which is shy of about 250 years old. And it was written where? Do you remember?
Morocco.
This Torah was written in Morocco. Very unusual, both to get these Torahs, to find it, that it should even exist, and it's such an age, and that it's still intact. So this Torah was once beautiful, and actually not one of the heavier ones, which if you've ever been to any synagogue or temple or shul, you'll know some of those scrolls can weigh 30 pounds. And no matter how much you've worked out, it's a heavy weight. Usually some of those rabbis are doing weights on Torahs, but okay, that's a separate story. This Torah is not that heavy. And yet, this Torah can be restored. The parchment needs taking care of, the stitching, patching, letters, and this Torah can come back to life. And while doing it, yes, you may just simply say, hey, scribe, take it to your workshop, fix the whole thing, give it back, and someone will use it. But we're saying that if one letter, how about 5? How about 500 letters still need to be rewritten, and I come and invite you, let's see, and you. Okay, I can see a few here. And you can actually come up and hold the feather and find out which letter it's going to be ultimately and what word it is and what's the magic of this letter. This is what we call a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and mitzvah to write in the Torah. Just a footnote. Does anyone here know how you say the word letter in Hebrew? Anyone? The word is ot. Can you all say it? So you've just now learned a Hebrew word. The word is ot. So if you walk out of here and you forgot everything I said, don't forget that this is made up of many otiyot. That's plural in Hebrew for letters. But here comes the fun part. So we say that a letter means the word ot. We got it. If someone says to you, by the way, does anyone know what the word ot in English means? No, slow down. If you open up a dictionary, and you can check me out on this, the first translation of the word ot is a sign. You know, one of those big billboards that say this way to Chicago and this way to China, right? A sign, direction. That's what an ot means. If you look down, it'll tell you an ot also means wonder. You know what wonder is? It's when you go like this. And sorry to make the facial expressions, but I have a lot of kids who've taught me well. You go like this. Wow! It's real! Ot in Hebrew also means magic. Ladies and gentlemen, we are standing here. I'm standing, you're sitting. In the presence of Jewish magic. The fact that you are all here today is a testimony to the fact that we have a Torah. And with my help, I hope, and all of your help, we're going to restore and fix this Torah across the country. And we're going to invite young and old to get involved in a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, an experience of actually writing a letter in this Torah. So how are we going to do this? We've devised an early stage plan how to go about this. Our intention is that rather than having the entire scroll restored and we just let the different posts and departments know that we've restored the Torah and everyone says, Mazel Tov, and here's $18 because we're happy for you. What we're going to do is we're going to schedule over the course of the year visits to all of your posts across the United States. And we're going to come with the Torah. And we're going to have letters at the various sections that need to be fixed, obviously with proper advertisement, with marketing materials, as you can see out here. It's going to be advertised not only within members and their families, children and grandchildren, but in fact within the greater communities of every single city, to come in and be part of this experience, of this project. And obviously there will be fundraising opportunities to dedicate various parts of this Torah with beautiful certificates and recognitions and so on. But it's going to be a day of learning, a day of growth, a day of belonging, and a day to recognize that just like in the Torah, there was a stage that came before getting it. And that was the servicemen. Those who served were the prelude to Torah. If you think of it, what came before Torah was our young going out there to battle, showing that it was important to defend and to be brave. And sometimes even lives are given as a result. When we were able to hold up that matter in such a prominent way, God then turned around and gave us the Torah. So the main objective of what we're going to be working over the course of the next few months, hopefully in putting this together, is establishing a pattern where we will be able to schedule appointments in all the various cities with our various posts and departments and so on, making sure that we have all the materials available for everyone so it can be advertised well in advance, and have dedication, fundraising opportunities at every single location. Surely this also is going to create an incredible awareness about yourselves. Because we're going to use the Torah not only as a vehicle for a mitzvah, but as a vehicle to make an awareness of other mitzvot, of which even being a service person in the army is extremely valuable. Someone who's a veteran. And in this case, we're talking about Jewish veterans who have stood up and served and now will be able to be recognized in a most beautiful, Jewish, and meaningful way. We will be able to provide each post with multiple assistants in scheduling and putting it together, from ceremonial activities, from educational elements, whether classes, materials that will be able to be given out. During the writing itself, there will be multiple stations of activities that take place prior to the writing and following the writing, of which all those things are going to be scheduled and available throughout the entire project. As far as the fundraising goes, and I'm just going to mention this briefly, is that a traditional fundraising is usually, hey, mister, I have a good cause. Can you give me $1,000? He says, $1,000? Why should I give? I'll give you 10. Come on, give me $750. I'll give you 25. And then we settle on a dollar amount. And then he says, okay, so I'm giving you $75. What are you going to give me? He says, well, maybe I'll give you a letter or a word in the Torah. That's traditionally how these things have taken place in the past. We've somewhat turned this upside down. What we've done is we have taken all the stories of the Torah, all the morals and all the values, and we've put them into categories and subjects. So if someone comes up and says, I would like to dedicate the story about a war, army, a general, I would like to dedicate a part of Torah that has to do with healing, or children or grandchildren. I would like to dedicate the part of Torah related to the environment. We have it all. And we will assign various dollar values to it, and ultimately various recognitions that one will receive for the various amounts. I think at the tail end there you can go ahead and see that wooden certificate that's there. It's a plaque with a certificate, which will have the certificate, a photo, the timing, the date, whatever was completed at that time. And people should be able to walk out with a memory of what took place. And this is what we have found has generated very large dedications over the course of the years. We're hoping to raise... Are we allowed to discuss numbers?
It's a big number. Yeah. Make sure it's in 7 figures.
The idea really is based on, ultimately there's many elements to it and how many posts are going to have this take place and how many overall departments will be managing this. But our hope is that we should be able to raise a few very strong hundreds of thousands of dollars in this case. And we have done this in the past, so this is not a new venture, but rather hundreds of various activities of small and large, many of which have reached into the millions. So again, depends on how we plant the seeds and how we put it together, but that is going to be part of the action. Before I open up a little bit to questions and answers, because there's a lot to be discussed here, I'd just like to mention one thing that's very important. I was actually yesterday up in Baltimore, and they're discussing to do some type of a new Megillah, whatever they're doing, and they wanted to write letters. But someone came up and says, I would love to do it, but I'm terrified to be the one who's going to mess up. My hand, I'm going to shake, someone's going to bang me, and everyone's going to remember me as the person who destroyed the Torah or whatever they were going to be writing. I said, the good news is, and if you can see on so many of the photos all around, at any given time, and this is to reassure everyone, that I will be, or my colleagues, or whoever will be coming to that particular visit, at all times, there will be a steady hand holding the feather. That is very reassuring. Now, you will not only be standing on the side and watching, You will not stand close to me and touch my shoulder or my yarmulke. You're actually going to hold the feather together with me. So everyone will be getting that absolute feeling and experience of not only watching, but actually holding the feather, learning about that word and letter that has just about to be written, and then eventually actually writing your letter, making your mark in this Torah. It's putting your stamp of approval that I'm a Jew, I'm proud of it, and this is the source of my pride. And you and Moses, think of this, you and Moses are going to be on the same plateau. You and Moses are going to be able to participate in writing Torah. Not every day can you walk out of a room and say, me and Moses, we do the same thing together. I do turn around and say that to become a scribe, a sofer, there isn't a school that teaches this. You can't go to college. There are no courses that teach anyone to become a scribe. So the great question is, so how does one become a scribe? If no, there's only one way. It's to become an apprentice and learn under another scribe. So I ask you a question. Who taught my teacher? So you'll say, his teacher. Well, wait, and who taught his teacher? Well, and who was the first teacher? Well, good old Moses. And who taught Moses? So if you think of it, I'm in God's profession. A little respect. Okay. This is a year-long activity. And while each post will have their element and their section, each post will need a number of good weeks of planning their piece. We would provide all the information they need, all the texts and all the notes and all the materials to be given out. Everything will be provided in advance. Obviously, any type of training with running the actual activity of that day will be provided. And then, based on the time, we will be able to show up with the Torah, provide various education opportunities and learning, depends on the ages and so on. And then throughout the day, people would have signed up, and this is what we do. And they come in, young and old. We encourage people to come in families, to come in groups. So sometimes people don't feel that they're doing this alone. And allowing everyone that chance to feel that awe in writing God's letter in the Torah. Okay. I've tried to summarize it. Sometimes I can go on for about 5 hours, so I really did very good. But let's open some questions if anybody has. And if you ask me the birthdays of my kids, I'm already going to plead the fifth. I don't. Is it on yet?
Talking to David.
What's that?
Should be on.
It's on? Okay, good. David Magidson, Post 243, Florida. It's to Norman, okay? Because whenever we engage something, we always need to know the cost of it and what your thinking is about success, Norman. So what is the cost to us? And I'm asking him, not you, Rabbi.
I don't know. And the reason I don't know is I know an upfront cost.
What is the upfront cost?
Cost right now will probably be to us between 5 and 10. And if we were to do this alone with 1,000.
Okay.
Right. If we were to do this alone, you correct me if I'm wrong, forgetting the whole process, it would cost us 25 to 50 to get it rewritten.
That basically.
Okay, so
Less than
basically-
25 to get it all completely kosher and fixed.
So
Correct.
That is our total, the 25 would be our total cost.
Okay, let me just, because we heard hundreds of thousands, we heard millions, so, and that's on the one hand. So the balance is the cost. And all I want to know, because I'm in favor.
One other thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Norman.
Even if we choose not to do it, without getting into a long discussion of why the Torah,
We have to do the Torah anyway.
yeah, we need the Torah.
Yeah.
Our Torah is only going to be good for 10 years, maybe. And
That's the
we're
mitzvah.
reading- Yeah, I don't want to get involved to why. So we're going to end up having to do it. And I'd much rather not just lay the money out, but give everybody the opportunity to write the letter, to do as the rabbi said. And while we're doing that, as the rabbi said, we'll make a few bucks.
Okay, and the second question, because I'm in favor of it, I just want everybody to understand both sides, because that's important. Whenever we go into something, we need to know the cost to us.
Right.
It's very important. It's the balance. Besides the mitzvah, and it was very important for people to understand that the Torah needs to be done anyway, which it's convinced me to be in favor of this. But what do you think the odds of success? I'm not talking about hundreds.
But let me add just one other element of cost. Okay, so you mentioned obviously there's the element of the actual restoration, which will take over the course of a year regardless, between the visits and so on, to actually physically restore the entire scroll. However, each location that will have the Torah brought to it, with the, with the sofer coming, spending the entire day, and the materials printed and so on, our estimate is in a range of about $5,000 to try to put all of this together per location.
So that would be 25 on top of 25.
No, 5 per whenever a day would be. So it's a few $1,000s to come out for the sofer, and then is whether myself, one of my colleagues, and then there's materials, putting it together, travel, whatever it might be. The hope would be that each post should be able to double, triple, quadruple that number, obviously with a pre-plan of the dedications that will be available.
One more, I just want to follow up. Norman, okay, everybody can balance what they think the success will be or what they won't be. So I have no further questions. I'm sorry. I'll pass it.
Yeah, Rachel.
So if you could explain, from just following up from your question. So each of the locations are going to pay for the expenses for that location. The cost for no.
Give him the microphone.
The cost for doing it is going to be totally contained within the project. Certain money will need to be laid out up front to do it. But my feeling is if we bring it to your post, and in your case, since you're from Arizona, I certainly would strongly suggest that we bring it to your community. Because the Post, I know and everybody here knows, the Post by itself is not capable of doing that. So as the rabbi pointed out, this must be basically in all posts, and not just yours, my post would be no better, a community effort. So the material that the rabbi is supplying is what's going to be our guideline of how to get this done.
Right.
We're not having to write it. Therefore, the worst case would be your community could only bring in $5,000 and we broke even. That is not my wish at all, because I think, based on what you said and what I've seen in the past, if that happened to 1 or 2 times, we would actually revamp what's happening, because the project in itself in the Jewish community should well cover that. What the top number is, I don't know, and I don't think the rabbi knows unless he knows something that I don't know. Ask the question. So I don't see that as a problem. Let's get some more questions.
Yeah, here.
Sorry.
Rabbi, could you give us kind of your track record in this? In other situations that are analogous to this, what has been the cost and what has been the reward, as it were?
Yeah, okay. We do have a rule of thumb, which is a conservative average of what we have been able to raise in small and large communities, organizations, colleges, camps, and so on. The number has been raising $100,000 out of every 100 family units, meaning some only give $18, some will give you the 500. There'll be a bunch giving you 1,000 or 2 or 5,000. Out of 100, there'll be those who are capable of giving the 15 to 20 larger donors. And as an average, that has been a number. Many places have done much more than that, and some places have only gone up and raised 50. Okay, but a very comfortable average has been that 100. So that has been a track record throughout.
100,000
out of
100
family units. Right.
Okay.
Yes.
My question, Rabbi, this is
Is it on?
Gary Ginsberg, Commander, Post 41, Rochester, New York. And I find this whole thing very fascinating, and I really have 2 questions. What's the timeline that you're looking to that we'd be looking to get started? And also, is it something that could be used to enhance the Jewish war veteran visibility in the community, perhaps partnering with the Chabad locally and/or the federations and various local temples and so forth?
Okay, so answering that question really in two parts. The first part is we'll need approximately 2 to maybe 3 months of putting this together. Sorry? Okay, well, that I'm going to let you because that's leading up to your timing. So there is okay.
For those who want to... Let me stand up. The upfront time that we need to get everything ready will be done between now and August. At our August convention, this year will be the, quote, the kickoff. This is to get everybody informed. We'll talk to the rabbi. We have about 6 months till August. But by August, we should be able to do
To
all
have
of the
everything
material
ready.
And the kickoff will be in August. What I would be asking for in August is departments to commit and departments to have their posts commit so we can keep track of what's happening so that we can immediately start scheduling. And as we get the information, we'll pass it around.
And the end is?
At the end will be the following one-year convention, which will be our 125th convention.
And in answering the second part, it's absolutely, the objective really is to reach out to affiliations of all, Chabad, it could be Reform, Reconstructionists, everyone should be reached, asked, invited, and so whether they want to hold smaller events by them or they can be invited to come to a location that you have designated, that's in the details. But absolutely, the whole plan actually is to reach the entire Jewish community across the country.
Just a quick follow-up, if I may, and appreciate that clarification. As this thing gets going, when the folks come on site to assist us, is that going to be 1 or 2 days or a couple of one day or?
There's no set time. In other words, if you need it's a small location, needs only a half a day, so it'll be. If it's a whole day, of course. But I am sure there will be locations that can benefit from 2, maybe 3 days. The amount of response that they're getting, they can fill up 3 days. Guess what? We will come out for 3 days. And more. I mean, whatever is necessary, we will do. Yes. There's your microphone.
Can you tell us how many?
Identify yourself, please.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, sir. Robert Nussbaum, NEC, Department of Illinois. Can you tell us how many programs similar to the one you're proposing for JWV are currently extant as we speak? Because I know of the one that JNF is running. I have the material upstairs. I didn't know we were going to be doing this now. Because they're selling a whole Torah to one person for $100K, and it's being, as you may well know, written up on Masada. So $100,000 buys you the whole Torah. And it's $18 a letter, that's and various amounts in between. But if there are 7 or 8 different programs, we're all vying for the same high dollars, if you will.
A very, very, very big difference. Whether you're giving high dollars, if you're going to give $50,000 to that project, it's all about money. People are in other words, we're asking you to donate money. And the Torah is being written in Masada. You'll get maybe a certificate, that letter number 285, that was yours. But that's about it. We are completely doing something that has never been done before. Taking it to every single post and allowing everyone not just to hear about it, learn, celebrate, dedicate, but to actually write. And that's going to make it that personal experience, and therefore, when something's more personal, we tend to find that the level of giving becomes higher. And we hope to reach much higher numbers on the average of those who would have given only 18, will tend to want to give much more than that because they're feeling special because they actually did it. It wasn't that, my $18, someone else is getting the whole scroll. Here, everyone is actually getting to write. And that's going to be a very significant difference from anything that's going on anywhere else, with no comparison for that matter.
Rabbi, Mike Berman, New Jersey. Any number of smaller communities will not be able to raise the $5,000. Not only the post, but the entire community, all 17 Jews in the town. Are you going to bypass that town?
Not at all. I think what we were discussing as well, that there was going to be various levels of involvement. Sometimes it could be that what we would do, and I personally have done this, where we do road trips. And we'll take a week, and I've done the whole Northern Rim, and I stop at all the small congregations. And guess what? I'll sit in one place for 2 hours. A few hours later, I'll be in another place for another 4 hours, and we'll move on. I think it's very important that this project is inclusive of everyone. That is the objective. Let's use the classical phrase, no Jew should be left behind. And if someone's part of this, I pledge that we all should make that commitment that, yes, of course, in the larger locations that can raise the money and do it for the organization, for the JW, absolutely. But for those who are not capable, and simply because of the numbers of the members, or even the Jewish people, everyone should be allowed and invited to participate. So,
One follow-up question. I live in a unique camp. We have scribes that live in camps. Would that be profitable for us to have the Torah come to our town?
I'll tell you why I think it is. Because what we are doing is novel. Scribes, by definition, if you've met one, there are not too many of us, but if you've met a scribe, their profession is in their hand. They're usually not public speakers, they are not educators, they are not teachers, they're surely not fundraisers and storytellers. All they'll do is sit and write. Beyond that, the vast majority of the scribes, if you told them, while you're writing, I would like to hold on to your feather, they would say, are you crazy? I'm going to have to pay you to fix your Torah after all the mistakes and everyone smudging. So the vast majority, and it's really a very select few who are talented, capable, trained in that level of being able to hold it and allowing as many people that are capable to reach out and hold to actually do it. So that's not, even though you may have a city full of scribes, this is not what they do. They'll sit in their office, and even if they'll come out, they'll say, here's a feather, here's the scribing, mazel tov. It's not educated, it's not educating, and it's surely not uplifting. So we're going to be offering something that's going to be unique across the country, for that matter, even in places where there are many scribes. Absolutely. Yes.
Sidney Lichter, Department of New Jersey. Let's say we have a small town with a very limited number of Jews. Would this be open to the community at large as well?
We're hoping so. We are really hoping that should be the objective. Yes.
When the Torah is being moved around, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, any Jewish person in that community is welcome to come and join. It is not open only to Jewish war veterans. It's open to every single Jew in that community. Everyone is welcome. I don't care, and I don't think the rabbi cares.
That's not what I asked, Norman.
I assume, can you write in the Torah if you're not Jewish?
Okay. Were you asking about non-Jews?
Correct.
Okay. Here's the answer for that one, and please listen very carefully. Okay? Let's avoid that question just for a moment. And I'm going to ask a different question. And with respect. Every person who comes and sits next to me and writes, I don't ask who they are, where they are, who they're coming from, what their affiliation, they're another human being. Now, what happens if it just so happened that Mr. Schmerl happens to be a Jew, however, he desecrates Shabbat openly, he eats Chazra on Yom Kippur. Can he do it? There's your answer. Absolutely! The Torah does not mekabel tumah, cannot become impure. And therefore nothing can defile Torah. The Germans tried, and here we are still holding the flame. And yet, with any concern of any sort, the letters are already there, remember. I'm holding the feather. I'll be there together making the blessing. So even with the doubt of a goy doesn't make a bracha, a goy doesn't make a blessing. Surely the non-Jew does not have an obligation to do a mitzvah. But I'm doing it. And if that will make them feel good and special to be part of this, God bless. Okay, so they perfect. And I hope I gave a satisfying answer as well.
I have another question, Harvey Weiner, Newton Brookline Post 211. Are you going to be the only sofa, or I see there's a list of several people, or is it, do you have a team, individuals going out to different places?
Yeah, so we are a team. My father, who's a scribe, I am a scribe, my son-in-law is a scribe. I have trained others as well. I will say that some of the other scribes and trained qualifying rabbis who are traveling are actually more qualified and more talented than I in speaking and teaching and writing and so on. I think I'm okay, but I believe that some of the others are really special as well. And based on the schedules that you will have, it's almost impossible to have a date that we cannot provide because we have multiple scribes available. So that, in answering your question, there will be a number of us, and so it will never be a situation, well, I'm sorry, I'm already committed elsewhere. We have a whole team. So it really should be able to make it available for any dates that you select. Except Shabbos and holidays, but thank you for that. Yes. Forget Shabbos and holidays. That's my wife's requirement. She says, if you come home for Shabbat, you can go for the rest of the week. Yeah, there's...
Quick question, Rabbi. Rabbi, economically, do you need the money up front? When do you get paid?
The Torah writing and the Torah repair work, it's going to be over the course as we are fixing, we'll be getting paid in arrears. Visits, and obviously some of the pre-work, there'll be some pre-setting and putting together the materials and stuff, but that's a very limited amount, and that's what we had discussed. But the rest of it will only be following after each visit in every section of time that'll take place. So it's always going to be once activities and service rendered, payment will be coming. So it's not up front, but rather in arrears.
No.
There's down there.
I will tell everybody up here, except for the upfront cost, there is absolutely no way this could be money losing. We will not lose money on this. Will we make money? I'll tell you at the end of the project. But the expenses to do it will be paid after the fact. The minimal charges going up front will not affect our budget one way or the other. So this isn't like many cases where we've had to put $30,000 up front and come back with minus 15. That's not going to happen.
No.
That's already settled. I think Chuck has a question.
Yeah.
Rabbi, it's Robert Nussbaum, Department of Illinois again. How likely is it that somebody holding the quill with your hand by the nib would cause you to slip? And therefore, what is the process then for correcting that? Because it's my understanding that the letters have to be, you'll forgive the pun, letter perfect.
I don't make mistakes. Next. However, what you're asking is about if someone else made a mistake. Okay, I can handle that. In other words, if someone was holding it, not a mistake for that matter, but pushed and smudged, okay, which is, thank God, that's not something that has happened under my watch, but in all fairness, this world can happen anything. It's actually very interesting that there is a myth out there that if one letter, if a scribe is writing and he made a mistake, you have to start from scratch. That's incorrect. With a mezuzah, that is true. In a Torah, all we do is we wait for it to dry. I'm also a professional with the knives and the scalpels and all of that. And we peel off the ink without touching the parchment. It's a skill that, and what will happen is we'll clean it up and rewrite it, and you will never know that anything ever took place. Because just as a fine little mentioning, since you brought this up, is that when you write on paper, ink penetrates the material. that you're writing on. On parchment, on skin, the way it's done is that this ink does not penetrate the parchment. It becomes almost like a glue, and it's mounded on top of the parchment. As a result, if it was incorrect or smudged, we just peel off the ink, file down a little bit the parchment to make it soft again, and you rewrite it again. So there will never be a situation where even if someone else, not me, made that type of a smudge, it can be easily, and this is something that happens. Not only that, but if you have a regular Torah and someone by accident sneezed, and that happens, we get calls all the time. There's a big smudge because there was a sneeze on the Torah. We clean it out, and you will never know that it was there. Yeah.
Rabbi Chuck Greenberg, Senior Vice Commander, Department of New Jersey. Is a department going to be required or to pay up front or pay behind or obligated for any amount of money?
What he had said earlier, but I'm going to repeat it maybe in slightly different words so it's clear. The answer is no. What's going to happen is that the majority of all the layout work and expenses will be taking place up front. And while there may be a little bit, some of the outlay, but very minimal amount that may have to be laid out, that will be reimbursed overall in the back end. So no money will be officially laid out by any of the departments. Did I get that correct? There we go. Okay. Okay, back to the...
One more question.
Okay. Make it good.
I thought I heard somebody else back. All right, in a large...
What's your name, sir?
Erwin Burtnick, Department of Maryland. I think just about everybody knows me. Anyways, in a large area, we talked about these small towns. In a large area like Baltimore, you mentioned you were just in Baltimore, there are probably 10 Torahs being written at the same time. And everybody is vying for the same thing. Is the $18 a letter, so much a word. It's all happening all at once. Why would this one be different than any others? Number one. That's one question. I have a couple questions. Number two, the cost. You said there's no upfront cost. What about all your travel costs and all those things? If you have to stay overnight in a place, there's hotel costs. There's a lot of other costs that tie into this. Is National going to be paying for that? And what about, and again, in the larger areas where Torahs are being constantly written, it's just another one. It's somebody else has hit me with another, can you give me $18 or $36? Why is this different than any other ones?
Okay, we will split the answer. As far as that question, and I think I partially answered it earlier, but I'll add another segment to it. What happens if in a city that has many Torahs being written, I could almost guarantee that 9 out of 10, probably 10 out of 10 of those Torahs are not being written in this way, whereby traditionally, how is it being done? They commission the scribe to write it. The entire scroll is delivered. The rabbi gets up and say, we have a new Torah, Mazel Tov, let's have a party. That's it. It is so far and few those who are capable and therefore offering the opportunity to allow throughout the course of the project for hundreds and thousands of people to actually write. So that's...
Let me ask one last question. I'll leave the microphone. I think everyone can hear me. You look at the age of the people that are in our posts. Many of these posts get, the average age is 75 to 85, number one. Number two, when we just had a finance committee meeting and people were saying 5 people show up at our meeting, or 6 people show up at the meeting. Many of them are members just in name only. How are we going to get these people to contribute towards the Torah?
I think this microphone's a little clearer. This one's a little better.
Okay. The way the program is going to be presented, basically, and the sales that the rabbi will provide us with, will supply us all the material that we need to get them out. It is going to be part of the department in the post area simply to drive them possibly to the local thing. That we can't do at national. So it's the same way you want to get somebody, and I know many posts, simply throw breakfast to bring the people. They come for the breakfast. I don't care why they come to start with, I just want them to come to get the privilege to do it. And the one thing that I really don't want, so everyone knows, is to start it with all the reasons why we can't do it.
It's a good idea, but I'm just thinking of the
Yes.
certain negatives that we have to look at.
It's not just members, it's the whole community
Yeah.
we want to get.
And in your community in Baltimore, I'm making the rash assumption that the bulk of the Jewish community is not 85 years old. Is that correct? No, I didn't ask you post. I said in the community. No, so this process is open to every single person in the community who wishes to write a letter.
Norman, those that are affiliated, again, differently than.
But it's our job to go to the local synagogues, the JCCs. I don't care if you go to the churches. I don't care who you go to tell the people this is happening and bring them in. And that part is up to each. That will be the responsibility of the posts and the departments. National will help. The rabbi will help. The rabbi has all the material to supply. All of those things. So, am I concerned about it? Absolutely. I don't know who's going to show up, and the rabbi just told me he wouldn't tell me. He doesn't know. So,
No, it's 9 o'clock.
we're going to conclude with this. But before I conclude, having nothing to do with this, there's a telephone that Kara is holding that was found in the Jefferson Room. Does anyone have the slight idea who it belongs to? If not, check with Kara tomorrow if anybody tells you.
And it will be at the front desk.
Okay, it will be at the front desk. Okay, do you want to sum up?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to speak for so long. So, thank you for that. Often I'm asked when I begin this project, do I get nervous? And I think I mentioned earlier, every single time it is very nerve-wracking because I can tell you what I'm going to do. How am I going to know what others are going to do and how others are going to react? But the fact is that this Torah has its own magic. And when you allow the Torah to do its own magic, magical things can happen. Yes, we can do our share. We will provide materials and invitations, and we will get it into the newspapers, and if some places may even show it on the radios and on TV. We're going to go and put it out there. We're going to get this a national campaign. However, at the end of the day, we also believe in something called Hashgacha Pratit, divine providence. This Torah has sustained itself over the course of thousands of years. And here we are holding up that torch. One of the special gifts that God gave Abraham at the tail end of his life, he gave him the power to bless. Not only God blesses, God said, Jewish person, go out there and bless others. And the power that you can bless others will be my power, God says. So I would like to give you all a blessing. I'd like to end up with a bracha. First of all, I'd like to wish all of us, all of you, long life, healthy, a lot of nachas from each other, from your extended families, from your communities. But may you all also have the strength and the energy to realize that service doesn't end. Sorry to break the news, but retiring in Judaism doesn't exist. There is no retirement in Judaism. Living as a Jew, being proud, being active, giving, supporting is an ongoing act in Judaism. We're going to use the power and energy of this Torah to excite everyone once again in the power of blessing, giving, and ultimately receiving. Thank you all so very much for listening and participating. God bless you all. And God bless America.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. This concludes the first half of the presentation of it's a double feature. But there's, in spite of seeing this, there's no movies tonight. You're not going to see Parasite or anything. The second half is going to be a meeting of the policy committee. And what I would like to do is to take a 5-minute break, and those who are on the policy committee to sit at the table. Anyone else can sit wherever they want. And we have several items on the policy agenda. The phone says Merle Gellerman. Gellerman, Sounds very ethnic to me. Sounds like it's one of us.
That's who's been calling the phone.
Oh, well, Will Gellerman has been calling the phone. Okay, it's 9:05. At 9:10, I'm going to begin the meeting of the policy committee.
Here, let me, well, actually, we're streaming, so whoever's streaming, will just be on a break then.
Yes, sir, what?
If anybody wants to come see the Torah, yes. Break.
Yeah, during these 5 minutes, if you want to come up and see the Torah, please take a look.
From the basement, from the chapel at the museum.
This comes from the museum, from the chapel that's in the basement of the museum. And it was given, I think, in honor of Major General Julius Klein.
Written on the... Oh.
I got a question for you. No, but if they say they are, they are. I'm just saying that's what I would do, but I'm just telling you.
Thank you.
Ahead of the version that has. You gotta put on it.
They can,
I didn't want to ask him that amount, because he said no, and that would kill the project.
Oh, yeah. No. Women also put their hand on the
They
feather.
can do it all by themselves without a man.
No, well, he has his hand on the quill.
That I know.
They're not, nobody's putting their hand on him. They're putting their hand on the feather. They're actually.
What I'm saying is that they can't put their hand on the feather.
Yeah, they put their hand on the feather. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I hear you. They told us asking, and I we've been talking to him about months, and oh, absolutely. Oh, sorry, here. These pictures, they want.
That's really what we're trying to do. We have a
I'm excited. I mean, this Jason, you have to go about it. Well, I'm in Phoenix, sorry. Now they got close to
Gulf War events. Everybody who served from August 2nd, 1990 to September 10th, 2001. Then we have a committee for 9/11 and vets. Peter Nikitas, it's a real pleasure.
I went around.
That's hilarious. Of course I know Herschel. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been in the house for a while. Yes. Yes, the Colorado. That's right. Yes. I did not bring my card.
Okay, if you can please be seated, we're going to begin part 2 of our meeting. Please be seated.
That's right. Oh, there you go. When you see him, tell him how you go. Absolutely.
Is everybody who is seated at the table a member of the policy committee? And there were no...
I'll be very quick.
Thank you. And has everybody who's on the policy committee signed the attendance slip?
Where is the attendance?
I think Barry Lashinsky has it, the attendance sheet.
Perfect.
And if Barry can give it to those who have their hands raised, which means they have not signed it yet, I would appreciate it. There are 3... can I have your attention, please? Please, please. Okay, thank you. There are 3 proposed... No, there are 3. There are 3. There are 3 proposed policy issues that have been submitted by, one by Nelson Norris, one by Ainsley Ferdy, and one by Dr. Barry Schneider. I'm the chair of it, so I would like to defer in each case to the proposer. And I'd like to begin with Nelson. Nelson, where are you?
Thank you, National Commander. Actually, this has been proposed by the Gulf War Veterans Committee, National. Okay, what we're proposing is to support construction of the National Desert Storm Desert Shield Memorial. I think everybody in this room remembers the Desert Storm's Desert Shield situation starting in August of 1990, going through February 1991. It was a war, I'd have to say, that we won. Our objectives were met. It's been quite a few years. It's about time that we recognize not only the 400 veterans that have been killed in action as part of the Gulf War, most of them were from Pennsylvania, by the way, but recognize all the 500,000 American troops that served in that war. The American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Disabled American Veterans, and several other organizations have already cast their support for this memorial. It's going to be on near the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and not too far from the Korean War Memorial. That's the proposed location. Again, there is no money involved in this. It's just giving our support as a proposal, which is about 1.5 pages long. I'm not going to read the whole thing. National Commander, I'm asking as part of the Gulf War Veterans Committee for the support.
Okay, thank you, Nelson. Just a couple of points. If it passes here, it's analogous to a resolution, and it has to be passed by the NEC tomorrow. Okay, I hear a second. All those in favor, say opposed. Passes unanimously. That was quick. The second is past National Commander Dr. Barry Schneider, and it has to do with the officer's headgear.
I think a lot of have seen this, I kind of filed it out. Basically, we have a new position, a national vice commander. So it begs the question, what do we do with that? And to keep things, we know what we do now, the commander gets a hat with 4 stars, and the SRA gets 2 stars. What we're proposing in this, and I've got 17 endorsements on this, is the national commander will continue to get a hat with 4 stars that will read national commander with the date of his term on there, just like we're doing now. The national vice commander will get a hat with 3 stars, and the date be pretty much similar to what the commander gets, except 1 less star. And it'll say national vice commander, because that's what he is. We're proposing that the judge advocate continue getting the hat that he's worn for decades with the 2 stars on it and the same nomenclature and no date, because the length of his term of office, or her term of office, is undetermined, so we can't really put that on there. So the next one would be a hat for the National Chief of Staff, which would be embroidered with 1 star and say National Chief of Staff and the dates of his term of office. Then it comes to the past national commander's hat. I was not past national commander in 2018, 2019. And that's what my hat says. So it's really bad English to do it that way. If we're going to have a past national commander hat, it should just simply say past national commander with no date. The alternative is, quite honestly, which I think is the best alternative, is not even mess with the past national commander. I'm sure that when I look at past national commander Berman's hat, or any past national commander Kalan's hat, and I look at the date on it, I'm not going to think that they are the current national commander. You don't need the past. Most of them do. Yours has a date on it.
No, it says national, not past.
Okay, but most of them, mine has a date on it.
Okay, one at a time.
So, anyway, so this is what we're proposing, and we're allowing, the proposal says that if you have a hat that says past national commander in the date, you can wear it, or you can wear a hat that just says that, or you can wear the hat you got as commander. It just brings things a little bit clearer.
Okay, a couple of points. One is, we had a discussion, you and I, that 2 stars should also be for the national chaplain. Is that correct?
We discussed that, and yes, that's acceptable.
Okay, and we've never had a policy before on this. If you're wondering why we're doing this, we've never had a policy that I know of, and that past National Commander Dr. Barry knows. Go ahead. You're going to have to speak up unless there's a second microphone.
It's a procedural thing. Each of those proposals, I believe, needs to be put into a separate policy resolution because you may be in favor. No, wait. Because you may be in favor of one, the way he proposed it, and opposed to a different one. So each one needs to be voted on separately.
I'm not quite sure. You mean each has to be voted separately? Okay. Now this is not going to. This doesn't go in front of the NEC. This is sort of like a policy that goes in the manuals.
Yeah, but that gets approved by the NEC.
Gets approved by the NEC? Oh, I take that back.
But ask Ainsley to speak on it.
Ainsley, do you want to speak on this?
Yeah, I got it. Ainsley Ferdy, Post 243, Florida. The one thing here is now you're going to change past national commanders. You didn't give them any stars. You're taking away the 4 stars they got. No.
I'm not voting on that.
Well, then that should go in there along with the point where you're talking about past national commanders hats will only say past national commander, but will continue to have 4 stars.
David, identify yourself.
I'm sorry, we'll do it. David Magidson, no, it's not going? David Magidson, Post 243. What's funny is Barry's absolutely serious, and it's a great idea, and I'm in favor of it. But I'll give you an example of how it is. I happened to be National Commander in 2005. I don't have it on my hat. And we're 2005, 2006, and we're at NATO. And I'm walking down NATO, Bob Picard and I, and I'm getting saluted by all these 3-star generals. And I'm trying to figure out, why are they saluting me? Because I had 4 stars. So, sometimes it works. It's certainly good for the ego. But I needed, because it was brought up, I needed to share that with you. Because you can picture this again. I'm walking down, Bob and we're chatting, and all of a sudden these big shot generals are saluting me, and I'm trying to figure out why the hell they're doing that. Anyway.
Did you return the salute?
Of course I did. Okay. After I figured it out. At first I didn't figure it out. I didn't understand what was going on.
Okay, Barry, you want to add to that? And Mike wants to add to that.
It must be because you're tall, because when I was there, I got nothing.
What? Yes, I don't see anything wrong with that.
I'm trying
I think
to
the more
my
honors, the
permit,
better.
New Jersey. I'm trying to figure out where this belongs, and I question whether it belongs before the policy committee. The policy committee determines policy, not ritual. And there's a very big distinction between the two. This is ritual. This has nothing to do with national policy from the organization.
Well, it was submitted to us.
Make it right.
I understand.
The policy is what, Ainsley, rest your case. The policy is such as we support whatever, such as the resolution or the policy that was just finished, and that of supporting the national monument for the Gulf Corps veterans. That's policy. Ritual deals with our Constitution and bylaws.
You mean the Constitution and Bylaws Committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Not the National Policy Committee.
But this doesn't go into the Constitution and Bylaws.
It would be
In the manual of,
should be in the bylaws because it deals with.
it's not presented as a bylaws.
That doesn't mean it's right. And what is ritual goes in the bylaws and not in the policy committee.
Okay, one more.
Lou Michaels.
No, go ahead.
Lou Michaels, Department of Minnesota. This is protocol. This is rank. I know that from the American Legion and the VFW. You're not talking about ritual. You're talking about protocol. Protocol is a very important situation. You're talking about stars. These men wore these things. All Barry's trying to do is bring it into the new future. That's how it is. It is what it is, gentlemen. It's protocol. Starts with a P, protocol. Thank you.
To get it before the NEC, it starts here. So it will be presented to the NEC tomorrow if it's passed, and the NEC will vote on it, and it ends up as part of our Constitution, which is, let me finish, it will be moved to the rituals, but NEC has, the manual ceremonies is part of the ritual, but that has to be approved by the NEC, and that will be done, a yes or a no will be done tomorrow at the NEC. Okay, can I hear a motion? And second? I know you don't need a second, but I want to hear a second. Okay, we've had extensive discussion on all of them. I'm not going to do them seriatim. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes almost unanimously, but it passes. Okay, the third
policy, in quotes, is suggested by Ainsley. Ainsley, you want to talk about it?
Thank you. Ainsley Ferdy, Murray Solomon, Brown Post, 243, Florida. The reason that I don't apologize for not having copies for everybody, but because this is something that occurred this afternoon. As you know, Florida runs the hill like a marathon. And so this afternoon, in one of our last appointments, we were presented with a request to do something. That is to endorse a piece of congressional legislation, House Representative Bill 5605, leverage research resources of the U.S. and Israel to research, diagnose, and treat PTSD. The essence of the bill, and I've had a few people look at it too, is that in order to systematically put together with Israel and the United States actions relating to PTSD to provide better knowledge, better leverage, better treatment that is possible. And the methodology utilized is a grant program limited to institutions in the United States who partner with an Israeli entity of similar quant to present the research and the evidence and presentation. It involves Secretary of State, involves the Secretary of Defense, as well as the Veterans Administration. It's been endorsed by AIPAC so far, and it does not contain any monies to Israel in this particular program. The only monies will be settled in some kind of budget bill would be the monies for the grants that go to colleges, universities, other institutions in the United States that qualify for that purpose. This is good. We have the representatives' legislative aid that's marshaling this, and I think it's a first-timer where we've come to a meeting where we're actually asked to endorse some ongoing legislation and participate in the legislative process in that fashion. I would not want to leave this opportunity behind. It treats both our relationship with Israel and treats with our concern for the veteran who has PTSD. So, Mr. Commander, I move the adoption of a resolution endorsing House Bill R5605.
Okay, do I hear an unnecessary second?
Yes.
Okay, any questions?
Quick question. How does this compare to putting stars on a hat?
Would you go to the next question, please?
Next question.
Are we practically trying, Larry Shulman, Post 41, are we effectively trying to combine all of the health care for the PTSD with this research? This has nothing to do with the actual treatment. It has to do with the research to indicate the methods of treatment that might be more successful than others. The point being, it's a step, and then, as you well know, after you get past that step, then it's
then there's the application of the research that's there.
Larry Jasper, Post 373, Florida. Just to hopefully clarify, this is a 7-year program that involves research by Israel and by the United States, with the research and the results being shared with the common goal of finding better ways to treat PTSD for both countries. And as Ainsley said, it would be U.S. institutions, universities, and other nonprofits that would engage in this research would be eligible to receive grants from the U.S. We do not fund the Israeli part, they do, but the results are shared with the common goal. Thank you.
Okay, I hear a call for the question, so all those in favor say aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Nothing further, oops.
I have one short order of business which requires no action and requires no discussion. It's merely a heads up that I want to give everybody on something that has come to my attention that I want to share with the policy committee for action at a later date. I've been requested to have a reimbursement policy.
Can't hear you. Do you want to take this?
Yeah, I got it. Because I can't hear me either. I have had is this on? Yeah.
It doesn't sound it.
A dead one for a live one?
How's that?
Oh, yeah. All right. I've had a request that we devise a policy for reimbursement of expenses for national staff employees, as well as volunteers who do work for JWV and expend money. This is important to make sure that we provide our staff, our employees, with proper compensation for their time away from the office and things that they may need to spend in the performance of their duty. It's also important that when volunteers go out and expend funds, that we have a policy to determine if they're eligible for reimbursement, how much that reimbursement should be. And at this point, it's all kind of ad hoc. Yeah, I'm going down here. Yeah, this can be in reverse. Send the thing. I'll write you a check. We need to be a little more on a schedule than that. So what I am going to do is I'm going to ask the commander to direct the budget committee to take the time between now and the national convention to devise, come up, prepare, and present a reimbursement policy pertaining to employees and volunteers of JWV. Thank you, Commander.
Thank you. Okay, I think that ends the meeting of the policy committee. I don't think a motion to adjourn is necessary, so enjoy. No, it's over. It's over. Take care. We'll talk separately, though. The meeting is adjourned. I want to thank you all for your attention and for the profound discussion that took place.